Hey, I'm Travis from Coheed and Cambria.
Hi, this is Claudio from Coheed and Cambria, and you're watching Fret 12.
Studio rig differs from the live rig in a lot of ways, because when we're in the studio, we tend to experiment with a lot of different sounds. We kind of don't put boundaries just to what we use live in the studio. If there's an amp head specifically that we think is going to work for a certain song, we're going to try it. If it's at our, within our reach. You take an album like Afterman and doing it at Applehead, a lot of the equipment ended up being ours. They had quite a few amps, there, but a lot that we used on the record was stuff that we had, whether it be Bogner head. I personally would use a Mesa Mark V for a bunch of songs. Claudio uses the orange for quite a few things. I'd say on this record, pretty much, we were open to using each other's equipment and whatever they had available there. So when we're playing live now, we are sticking to using the Axe effects, and in using that program and using those sounds, we can create basically anything that we want, which is almost kind of like the studio. So in a way, it is related, because we're trying to recreate the sounds that we got from so many different amps when we were in the studio. So yeah, I mean, it's we just don't restrict ourselves in the studio to say, even when we were both using, I think Claude for a while there was using a Bogner and an orange, and I was using the Mesa, and we still, when we went to the studio, we'd never restrict ourselves to just using those in recording. I mean, if there's a sound we're really looking for that's going to suit the part, then, we're not going to restrict ourselves. Absolutely. I mean, I think that you're having another question where Claudio's probably going to go into, because he's got like a huge amount of pedals. He got into collecting. And I have a select few that I've liked to use throughout the years, and I've kind of stuck to that. But he has a huge collection of boutique pedals. On a couple of songs, he even used, he had gotten this pedal called the Ravish Sitar, and you can kind of hear that at the beginning of Domino. And I'm trying to think of other ones. I mean, I think I used the Swollen Pickle on a couple of things. And, sometimes it's just the regular amp overdrive, too, I mean, like I said, it's the same with the pedals as it is with the heads. It depends on the song. And we're going to search for the sound that fits. Because if we find it, then we're going to recreate it live. And we'll make sure we do that.
Well, for me, I like the idea of chance sort of music, where some noise can sort of add like an emotion that maybe something that you would consciously try to do. Does that make any sense? Am I making any sense? But anyway, so to answer the question, the pedals that I like to use are like noisy fuzzes that are pretty glitched out. One of the companies that's sort of my go-to is one called Death by Audio. They do a couple pedals that certainly get featured on the album. Certainly in Gravity's Union, there's a lot of them. But one is the Interstellar Overdrive. Another is the Apocalypse. I'm a fan of what they do. I own a few things. Super Fuzz Gun is another one. So that's one company. Electro Harmonics does a lot of really nice effects that are pretty standard in the studio for us. The Memory Mans, and they did this one recently called the Ravish Sitar that we actually sort of use as a droning sort of element in the front of Domino. Domino also features a lot of that sort of fuzzed out Interstellar Overdrive sort of sound. What else? I mean, just everything. I mean, I have a pretty large pedal collection. So I draw from a lot of that stuff. Another company that I like to use is one called Dwarf Craft Devices, and they have there's two pedals. One is the Great Destroyer, and another one is the Shiva. And the Great Destroyer, for a while, I actually had on tour with us just to make like this chaotic sort of wall of sound that was very unpredictable, just at certain points in the set. I mean, nowadays we're pretty stripped down. Excuse me. So a lot of that stuff now I just kind of leave at home. You know, the last record we did with Atticus Ross and Joe Barresi, that was sort of their thing. Was like, and one thing that I really liked about working with them, actually loved about working with them, because I learned a lot. And that's sort of what kind of got me into searching for boutique pedals and that idea of like chance, you know, just like, you know, letting the happy accidents just kind of fall, you know. So yeah, that was really my introduction into that sort of thing.
A majority of the stuff that I recorded on the newest album and when I play live is always Les Pauls. I've been using an SG when we play a song called Century of the Defiant, and I realized the love I do have for SGs as well and the sound, and it's perfect for that song. And basically, I only took the SG out because it's a different type of tuning, because Claudio uses a baritone. He's actually using a Gibson baritone Explorer, and so what I do is tune the B all the way down on the SG, and so that way I kind of can recreate the power chords and still have the low end of that B to kind of open it up. And you know, you want to set the guitar up different for that, you know, because if you just take your Les Paul and you tune down to a B, you know, and it's going to sound like shit. So basically, I had the SG set up specifically for that kind of open B tuning, and then I, you know, bring it out just for that. I was like, I just use it for that one song. Now I love it, you know. So, but I basically have been playing Les Pauls, you know, ever since I was a kid playing guitar. And it started with a love for Jimmy Page and a love for, you know, the people that played Les Pauls, Mick Ronson, and, you know, growing up, or Joe Walsh, and then, you know, it turned into a love of the sound of it, you know, once I started playing and realizing the potential that guitar had, you know.
Right.
And the heaviness, you know. I'm a big oath, so I like carrying around a big, heavy guitar. You know, the heavier the wood, the more comfortable I am dragging it around. And the better it sounds a lot of the time, you know, depending on the wood. Yeah, I have a custom Black Beauty that I've been using pretty much a lot of the set and a lot of the sets in the past couple of years, and I love that guitar. And then I have a gold top, but it was the traditional model they made, and it really is beautiful. It's extra heavy, and I don't know if that's like an advantage for it, like the wood's so heavy and that's, you know, fucking resonates through that, but it really sounds incredible. So I mean, those two guitars have been, you know, my babies. God, that sounds so stupid, but they have been. So you know, and then I had a Tobacco Burst that I got. Actually, Claudio and I went and got guitars when we first were like, we're gonna go out and try and do this road thing. And we both had, you know, fairly shitty guitars that we were using. I had a Les Paul Studio Light that basically was like a Frankenstein, you know, it had been through so much, and he was using a Strat that was the same thing. It was like a Frankenstein kind of thing. So we decided, like, with our, you know, paychecks from our jobs, him from a pet store, me from doing pools, we were gonna go get these guitars that we would go out on the road and you know, at least have something that was sturdy and could play right. And I had gotten a Les Paul, he got an Explorer, and I got a Les Paul Tobacco Burst. It was about 98, maybe 99. And that guitar still sounds amazing too. It's just one of those standby. Funny story about that guitar, and then I will shut up and you can ask the next question. But I've played that guitar since then, and I don't really have names for my guitars, but one night, our tour manager, Pete Stahl, is actually in quite a few bands, but one of them is a very well-known punk band called Scream, and he and his brother are in, and his brother Franz needed a guitar, and they asked if they could borrow Les Paul, and my guitar tech Dave Gibney got the guitar from me, or I brought it down with me, and we had him use it that night. And after, 13, 14 years using this guitar, it's named the Franz Stahl now. So
nice.
I'm chopped liver. Now it's the Franz Stahl. Franz. But he did do well by it that night, so that's good. But yeah, that's a guitar that I'll always love. And, I don't have like a shitload of guitars, Taylor's been extra nice to us too, and we use a lot of the Taylor guitars in recording and live. So we're kind of creatures of habit with our guitars. I know Claudio will bust out a Strat when the time is right. I own one and I've used it for some things, but I'm more of a Les Paul dude. Yeah, I did the MGs on one, but then I went back to the stock pickups.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So now,
the MGs sounded good for live. I wouldn't record with them. They're really nice. But yeah, I guess I was curious. Like, well, wait, what did it sound like before? It could get confusing to me because I'm not really technically savvy. So it's like, I really just can hear it sometimes in the sound. Sometimes it's confusing to me why does this not, to this person, sound as good as the other one? To me, it sounds fine. What are they talking about? But for some reason, I like the way, and that was the tobacco purse. We had taken that, but everything else is the stock. It's as it came,
Yeah.
Only thing is tuning locks maybe changing.
Okay, I was gonna say, did you use
Bigsby, I put a Bigsby on one of the guitars, so that was a difference. That's how I customized that one. And then on the Black Beauty, in the Gibson factory, they put the keywork on that for me. Mm-hmm. So it's funny that it almost looks like a sticker, which sucks because I paid extra to have that, but it's inside there. They actually built it in there.
Yeah, that's the one from the Juggernaut video.
Yes.
I was gonna say,
And I used it in I've used it in a couple of other things too. But that's the Black Beauty. That's my go-to. Other than that, and the Gold Top. Basically, a majority of the time, it's going to be Claudio coming with like a song, kind of like the skeleton or the spine of the song, and we're going to all build around that and organize it. There are those times where I have a riff that maybe you'll make him excited, and then he'll want to build a song around that, and we work on it together, and there's songs like that, and that's always exciting for me. But it's just as exciting for me when he has a song that he had a riff, and he's already built melodies or even melodies with lyrics, and then it's my job to kind of paint around it and see what I can come up with to help it out, help it move, help it flow, And I think one of the ways that we've kind of always worked interacting guitar-wise is, kind of almost like gears, with the music becoming like gears to a clock or gears to any kind of machine. And, and sometimes it's almost like, how the fuck do these work together, when we put certain guitar parts together, and, it just does. And that's kind of part of our sound too. It's like the off-kilter, like, sometimes my melodies that I think of going on above what he's already doing is kind of off kilter, and then but people especially him luckily like it, and then it's the way it turns out. And the same happens with Josh and Zach, because they come in and they add their own flavor. They basically speak with their instruments.
This record, I started writing it about 2 years ago, and we were writing material up until the studio. So, most of the lyrics sort of came as I wrote the tunes. At the time, I wasn't thinking about the concept. There actually was no concept. So I was just writing songs that were, reflections of basically the 2 years that it took to write it. Excuse me.
Okay, so lyrically and musically, or just musically, the tunes?
Well, lyrically, musically as well.
Okay, so complete songs.
Yeah. That I usually write the music first before I start to pen the lyrics. But like I said, we were working up until the record, while we were recording. Dark Side of Me was written in the studio. Number City was written in the studio. Gravity's Union. Oh no, excuse me. Century, the Defiant. Something I wrote, on a baritone that was just lying around in the studio, or started to write.
I think that it's just like, it depends on the moment. I mean, I know for Claudio, I mean, a lot of the songs probably from Afterman just came from moments that kind of gave him the drive, like, something happening that gave him the drive to want to work on a song that maybe has an emotion to it through the music, and then, puts the lyrics to it. And then kind of we follow that to the best of our ability. I mean, sometimes we won't even know what the song's about yet, but if he has some kind of backbone to the song or skeleton, then we're gonna just try and add to it and build a beast out of it, basically. And then, like I said, if I'm playing a riff and he's excited about it, well, then the next step is to just build, vocal melody around it. And, really it starts more or less with the guitar and a vocal melody, and then, everything's built around that. And then shit, it's a process from there too. I mean, Josh and Zach have a really important job of following these intricate melodies and trying to, almost build a foundation for them so they can stand, It's like a house. I mean, to play music in general, I mean, I'll always have to say that it was my father, because he's still a musician to this day. My mother was a musician too. They met in an off-Broadway Jesus Christ Superstar production, and of course they didn't stay together, and my mother kind of fell out of the whole music thing. And to be honest, I don't think if my dad didn't keep pushing and being who he is, then I probably wouldn't have wanted to play music, because it just kept it around me. So I got to be around a lot of musicians growing up because of that. And I know that for Claudio and Josh, it's the same, And Zach just grew up in a community. He was very similar to us in being in bands since he was much younger and stuff. I had the luxury of having a lot of friends around me, counting Claudio, that were very talented from a young age, and or even beyond talent, were just had the imagination to really want to try to get out there and play. So, I mean, I could sit here and just say, oh yeah, I'm influenced by, Jimmy Page and Kirk Hammett, and, when I was a kid, I loved, all these different punk rock guitarists, I love Black Flag, and I love, Jane's Addiction or something like that, but, that's not, it's really the people around you that, if you have family or friends, they most likely are going to be the ones that influence you to do anything musically. I think that there's a particular challenge involved, kind of an unspoken challenge in certain ways. I mean, I definitely have learned a lot from Claudio playing with him. And I'm sure that there's a few things he's gotten from me, like even if it's not directly from me, it comes from having to play with a different guitar player. With somebody else who plays differently, has a different approach, and within that's kind of what's made it a challenge for me. I mean, when he has like a song that he's working on, and maybe it's a riff that's like, wow, how do I wrap around this? Like, what do I do here? And I mean, we always are open to suggestions with each other too. So like, I mean, even Josh could come in and in musical moron kind of talk, which is what I call it when you go, well, play a or wah, instead of saying play a D sharp and do a pitch harmonic there, it'll just be noises out of our mouths. But we're always open to each other, like with somebody giving a suggestion like that, like, if you're gonna play there, or something like that, and so in that also makes you a better player, because you have people around you just saying, well, why can't you, even at Applehead, when we were there, like Mike and Chris, the producers were, they challenge you and they say that part's great, but you've done that. Like, why don't you try this and see how it feels, or even that they don't even have to tell you what they want. They'll just say, think about it differently. That's your go-to. Like, try something else, and then maybe you fiddle for a bit, and then it's like, that's cool. Let's roll with that kind of idea. That's kind of a producer's job, I think, too, because that's kind of what's missing. It's like when people are left to their own devices, you need that. They don't have that outside perspective of somebody to say, look, dude, you know, there's a different way of doing that. That's what's in your mind, but what I hear is different. And if you do this, you very well might like it. There's something that's priceless about that. You know? I think those guys, I mean, I think in a way they were who we first started with, you know, and I think that we've worked with some amazing producers. I mean, we worked with Atticus Ross and Joe Barisi and Nick Raskulinecz, and they were all like great, amazing producers to work with. The only reason I'd say those guys in the first place is because, you know, we started with them from day one, and to be honest, like knowing them, I mean, Mike was a good family friend of Josh, and Chris was in a band. He was in the band 3 with Josh for years before. So these are people that we knew and respected from years prior. So we go into their studio and, you know, they're kind of like, there's like kind of like a, all right, well, what are you guys going to do here? You know, like, you know, we know you guys, like, and then it just became serious. And then we all like had this kind of like unspoken relationship where, you know, we were all trying to work on towards the same goal. You know, and with that comes those challenges because it's everybody's land. They all put in on it. So everybody wants to make it look the best they can, and in this sense, sound the best they can. So I think that comes with a lot of challenges, you know. But I don't want it to sound like, you know, the other guys. I think it's any producer's job to challenge you. It's just they have a different approach sonically, and so, you know, I think that with those guys, we got exactly what we wanted sonically too. I mean, it was like a homecoming back to a place where we had sounds from, you know, years prior that we loved. I have no fucking idea. I am going to be completely honest. I'm at a loss as to what, you know, all I know is that we keep plugging along the way we do and we tour. Well, let's face it. I mean, albums, you know, it's crazy. The albums don't sell the way they did anymore. And if you want to be a working musician, you got to be out touring. You got to be ready to go out there and play for people, and you know, and you got to realize people expect more now. I mean, it's an ADD world. Like, you know, everybody wants everything like right away with the internet, and sometimes that sucks. You know, like it's sad because I don't want to be a bummer, but I mean, if you think about it, when things were a little bit more, you know, had more mystique and there was a little more wonder in the world. It's such fucking, you know, it's an unbalanced thing because, for me, with my opinion, because I love being able to access, when something's killing me, like trying to figure out the Interstellar Overdrive, you know, the name of that pedal, and trying to be like, well, what's that Pink Floyd song? Because that's what they named it after. It's like, right now, I could have figured it out if I had a phone, you know, and it would be easy. And there's a beauty to that. There's a beauty about, you know, being able to track down the tubes you need for a certain amp right then, you know, at the show, just by tracking down the nearest music store with your phone. And there's so much to it that's like convenient, but at the same time, everything has its cost. So when it comes to where music's gonna go, I mean, I think that it's just trying to catch up right now with technology, and you know, so that musicians can kind of find their ground as to how it's going to play out for them having a career. Mm-hmm. I don't think that the answer is quite there yet. I don't think that anybody can really tell how it's going to go. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of artists that were absolutely huge years ago that it just fucking kills them. You know, I thank God, us as a band, that we've kind of come up and grown up within this, and we know what technology has done to the music industry because we've been there for it, but we didn't come in expecting it to be any different. You know, we traveled in a van. I mean, we're an independent band. You know, like we didn't expect to come in and make, you know, fucking pounds of money. You know, and you know, be floating in our pools, like, you know, just with no care in the world. We expect it to work, so, and that's the way it is. So my favorite genre, and I think it shares a lot of, is horror. So, and that's yet to change still. I thought I'd grow out of that, but I don't think I'll ever grow out of it. I like a good horror movie. I grew up around that kind of stuff. My wife does not tend to like to watch the horrors with me. She used to like watching them more, but I guess now as we get older and we leave so frequently and she's got to be alone in a big house, even though we have a dog, but our dog can be kind of useless with guarding. But I love her. She's an amazing dog, but she'll lick the shit out of you as opposed to biting the shit out of you. Went off topic, but yeah, I've always been a huge fan of horror movies and comedies. I kind of always skip over that, but I'm a huge comedy buff as well, like stand-up comedy and like just stupid regular old comedy movies. We both were using, I remember Bogner's over, and we'd be over in Europe, and our shit would just fry a lot of the time. I guess because the electrical, differences and stuff, and we would just end up like playing, and our stuff would just start to kind of fade out. But technical difficulties in general, I mean, yeah, believe me, we've had more than enough throughout the years. Whether it be guitar malfunctions, some things have been broken due to our own hand, sometimes careless, sometimes part of the show. I mean, Claudio's danced on his guitar, for Christ's sake, so I've seen headstocks just like break from that kind of shit. But I mean, for me, even being careful a lot of the time, I've just like broken a lot of things, like, a lot of wear and tear on the road. Let's put it that way. I do love trying out like different types of sushi. I've become more and more open to it, and we were out in Japan, and I got to try like some amazing restaurants thanks to the label reps that were out there and took us out. So I'd say we had one night where we went out to a meal there, and it was incredible. Actually, the first time we went to Japan was one of my favorite meals, because we all went there, and it was like culture shock, like showing up into Japan, and they had left us like fruit baskets in our rooms and all the and we were still like 22, 20. So it was just whole new world to us, and we just got out of a van, like a year and a half, 2 years. We were doing like 2 years in a van, and finally, like we had developed a following, and all of a sudden, Japan wanted us to come over there. We were opening for Cave-In, and it was just incredible, man, because we went over there and they took us out to this like amazing meal, and I think the Cave-In was there too, the band Cave-In, and we were big fans of that band. So not only was it like cool to be able to break bread or sushi, if you will, with these guys, but like I said, it was a whole different cultural thing for us, like trying all these different foods, and yeah, so that's a big memory. And then every time I've been back to Japan, I've tried things. That is a tough one, because I try and often think of that. Before we started really touring, I mean, I got my associate's degree because I figured, I really want to get something. But that's equivalent to a high school degree now, I think, having an associate's degree. And it was in liberal arts, and sciences, which is basically the indecisive degree. But I got it. So, I don't know if that would mean shit in the grand scheme of things. But, I mean, obviously, I guess it would have to do with music in some way, or at least entertainment, because I love it. It would, I wish that I could pick, like, I love making soundtracks for things, not particularly making like, the actual music, which I like doing that too. But I'm such a huge music fan. I mean, I'm a huge collector of records and collected music my whole life, and I have this like really, pretty grand knowledge on music, or I'd like to think, I'm not tooting my own horn, but so I hear. And I love making soundtracks to like my everyday life and other people's. So I just wish that I could like choose songs. Like, they have a musical director who chooses the songs for movies and stuff. That's another thing I wish I could do. I wish I could be a musical director for. And instead of composing it, if they didn't like what I composed, I could find somebody really awesome to compose it. I'd probably just ask Claude to do it too. I'd be like, you don't like mine, try his. And then if they didn't like his, then I'd find somebody else that, I'd probably have them send me a demo.
moment, we've partnered with Leverage Entertainment and Mark Wahlberg, the actor, to maybe make that a reality. At the moment, it's, we're just trying to partner up the right people for the project, but that's about it. So,
what kind of movie would it be?
What kind of movie? I mean, it'd be a science fiction. It'd be an adaptation of the books that we have. I'm not exactly sure which story, but all of that stuff is sort of still up for debate. We're just sort of looking for the right people.